For decades, Canada has been one of America's closest military partners. They share air defense through NORAD. They train together. They plan together. And when it comes to fighter jets, the assumption has always been simple. Canada flies American jets, or jets approved by America. That's how the system works. But something unusual is happening behind closed doors in Ottawa. Quietly, without big press conferences or dramatic announcements, Canada is rethinking the F-35. Not because Sweden made a better sales pitch, not just because the jet is expensive, and not because of politics in Parliament. The pressure is coming from a name almost no one expected to be at the center of this story. Rolls-Royce, that alone should make you pause. Rolls-Royce isn't a fighter jet manufacturer. They don't build stealth airframes or flashy radar systems. They build something far more powerful in modern warfare, the part that decides who's really in control. What makes this moment different is the timing and the silence. Canada has already spent years negotiating the F-35 deal. The paperwork was nearly done. The decision was supposed to be settled. And yet suddenly, the conversation reopened. Not publicly, not loudly, quietly. That's usually a sign that something fundamental has changed. This isn't about speed, stealth, or dogfighting. Not yet. This is about who gets the final say. Who decides when planes can be upgraded? Who controls spare parts? Who can say yes or no when a country wants to change its defense strategy? In simple terms, this is not a debate about airplanes. It's a debate about power, control, and sovereignty. And here's the question that makes this story so uncomfortable for Washington. If even Canada, America's most reliable ally, is starting to question American control, what does that say about the system itself? Because once a country like Canada starts asking that question, others are guaranteed to follow. This is where the story really begins. To understand why Canada even started questioning the F-35, you have to look past the marketing brochures and into how the jet actually works in real life. On paper, the F-35 looks unbeatable. Stealth, advanced sensors, networked warfare. It's often described as the most powerful fighter jet ever built, and in many ways, that's true. The problem is what comes with it. First, the cost. Canada didn't just hesitate because the F-35 is expensive to buy. Many fighter jets are expensive. The real issue is what comes after the purchase. Every hour the F-35 flies costs tens of thousands of dollars. Over decades, that turns into a bill that can easily double or triple the original price. It's like buying a car that looks affordable in the showroom, but requires luxury-grade fuel, exclusive mechanics, and factory approval every time you change a part. Then there's the life cycle problem. The F-35 is not a jet you fully own in the traditional sense. Its software, diagnostics, and maintenance systems are centralized. That means data from Canadian aircraft flows back to U.S.-controlled systems. Updates are scheduled on America's timeline. Repairs often depend on American supply chains. Even something as basic as mission software is tightly controlled. In other words, Canada flies the jet, but does not fully control it. This leads to readiness issues. Reports over the years have shown that many F-35 fleets struggle to keep a high percentage of aircraft mission-ready at any given time. When parts are delayed or software updates are pending, jets sit on the ground. For a country like Canada, which must patrol enormous airspace, including the Arctic, planes on the ground are almost useless. Then there's the political layer. Because the F-35 program is deeply tied to the Pentagon, buying the jet also means accepting American rules. Upgrades, technology sharing, and even some operational decisions are influenced, directly or indirectly, by Washington. That's not unique to Canada, but Canada has become increasingly uncomfortable with it. This is where the idea of foreign veto power comes in. If your most critical defense asset can be restricted by another country's laws or political decisions, then your sovereignty is limited. Not in theory, in practice. Canada started asking a dangerous question. What happens if our national priorities don't perfectly align with Washington's at some point in the future? And that's why the F-35 became something more than just an aircraft. It became a strategic trade-off. The jet offers protection and alliance integration, but at the cost of independence. It's not a bad jet. It's a controlled jet, a system designed not just to fight wars, but to lock allies into a long-term structure of dependency. This reframes the entire debate. The real question is no longer, which fighter is the best? The real question is, who controls your Air Force once the deal is signed? And once Canada started thinking in those terms, the door opened for another option. That's where the Gripen enters the story. If the F-35 represents control and dependency, then the Gripen E represents possibility, a fighter that could give Canada the flexibility it desperately wants. On paper, it looks almost tailor-made for the country's unique needs. Let's break it down. First, the Gripen E was designed for cold, harsh environments. Think northern Sweden in winter, snow, ice, and temperatures plunging well below freezing. Canada's Arctic is even more extreme, but the Gripen has already proven it can operate reliably in tough northern conditions. Second, it's built for versatility. The Gripen can take off from short runways, even sections of highways just 800 meters long. For a country like Canada, where air bases can be hundreds or thousands of kilometers apart, that flexibility is priceless. Imagine needing to scramble jets from a remote highway in the middle of winter. The Gripen can do it. The F-35? Not so easily. Third, cost and efficiency. The Gripen's operating costs are a fraction of the F-35's, roughly $8,000 per flight hour compared to $35,000 to $47,000 for the F-35. And turnaround between flights? About 10 minutes with a minimal crew, while the F-35 requires hours and a specialized team. That's huge for a nation covering vast, sparsely populated airspace. Add in long-range efficiency, modern electronics, and proven readiness rates, and the Gripen seems like the perfect match. It's fast, capable, affordable, and flexible. But here's the twist, the hidden flaw that keeps Canada from fully embracing it, the engine. Specifically, the General Electric F414, made in the United States. Why does an engine matter so much? Because it's the engine that determines control. With a US-made engine, Washington has the final say over critical aspects: maintenance, upgrades, resale, and even technology transfer. In other words, if Canada buys a Gripen with a GE engine, it's free from F-35 dependence, but still tied to American permission. It's a paradox. The plane itself isn't American, but America still controls its heart. That's the moment where the story shifts from technical specs to geopolitics. An aircraft that isn't American, but still requires American permission, isn't independent at all. It's a clever workaround, yes, but it doesn't solve Canada's main problem: sovereignty over its own defense decisions. The Gripen offers hope, but only if someone can replace that engine. And that's exactly where Rolls-Royce enters the picture, threatening to change everything we thought we knew about fighter jet politics. Here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Rolls-Royce isn't just another engine manufacturer. They're a geopolitical disruptor in disguise. To understand why, think about this. In modern military aviation, the engine isn't just a piece of hardware. It's control, influence, and leverage, all wrapped into one. Whoever controls the engine can control the jet. Rolls-Royce has decades of experience in military aviation. Their engines power planes like the Harrier and the T-45 trainer, and they've been a key partner in numerous international defense projects. More importantly, they have a reputation for reliability in extreme conditions, including the Arctic cold that makes Canada's northern skies so unforgiving. Pilots and engineers know that a Rolls-Royce engine starts when others might fail. But the real game changer isn't technical, it's geopolitical. Unlike the United States, Rolls-Royce doesn't demand a veto over upgrades, maintenance, or resales. They're not a government trying to control allies. This opens a path for Canada to operate, upgrade, and even export jets without asking anyone's permission. Imagine replacing the American F-414 engine with a Rolls-Royce one. Suddenly, the Gripen is no longer tied to Washington's approval. The chains of dependency are broken. Canada regains technological sovereignty. Supply chains are more predictable. Maintenance is smoother, and political interference from abroad disappears. It's a shift that goes far beyond Canada. Any country buying a Gripen with a Rolls-Royce engine could do the same. Finland, the Czech Republic, even smaller NATO members or developing nations looking to access advanced jets without strings attached. This is why the United States watches these discussions carefully. Because engines are the real instruments of control. And Rolls-Royce is now offering a way to break the chain. For the first time in decades, a fighter jet can be both modern and independent. The story is no longer just about a plane. It's about rewriting the rules of power in global defense aviation. Canada isn't just choosing an engine, it's choosing who gets to call the shots. So what does all this mean for Canada on the ground? Let's break it down into concrete, real-world benefits. Because sovereignty isn't just a word, it's practical freedom in the sky. First, independent upgrades and maintenance. With a Rolls-Royce-powered Gripen, Canada can decide when and how to update its jets. No waiting for American approval. No complicated supply chains dictated from overseas. It's like owning your car versus leasing one that only the manufacturer can service. Suddenly, Canada sets the rules. Second, faster Arctic response. The North isn't a place you can afford delays. NORAD missions require jets ready to scramble across thousands of kilometers in minutes. With full control over maintenance and upgrades, Canadian jets can respond immediately to any threat, without being slowed down by Washington's approval processes. Third, domestic industrial capability. A partnership with Rolls-Royce opens the door for engine assembly, maintenance centers, and training programs in Canada itself. Engineers, technicians, and even future research and development projects could be built at home. This isn't just defense, it's economic and technological growth, creating jobs and building expertise domestically. Fourth, long-term cost stability. The Gripen is already cheaper to operate than the F-35. Combine that with simplified maintenance and fewer political delays, and Canada can plan a 30-year defense program with predictable costs. It's like switching from a luxury subscription you can't cancel to a plan you fully control. Finally, alliance cooperation without dependency. Canada remains fully compatible with NATO systems, but now it does so on its own terms. The country can integrate, share data, and work with allies without being micromanaged by Washington. This is what true sovereignty looks like. Participation in alliances without losing control of your own decisions. In short, Canada isn't just buying a jet. It's buying freedom to operate, adapt, and grow its defense capabilities on its own terms. And that sets the stage for something bigger, a potential shift in global power dynamics. Canada's choices might seem like a domestic procurement issue, but from Washington's perspective, it's much bigger than that. The United States has spent decades building influence in allied air forces, not just through technology, but through dependency. Here's how it works. The United States doesn't need to dictate foreign policy with troops or threats. Instead, it uses engines, software, and supply chains as levers of control. Buy an F-35 and the Pentagon automatically gains veto power over upgrades, resales, and even parts of your operations. That creates a network of reliance, a web where allies can't act fully independently without approval. It's soft power at the technological level, and it's been remarkably effective. Enter the Gripen with a Rolls-Royce engine. Suddenly, that web has a hole. Countries can now access advanced fighter jets without Washington controlling the key components. This threatens the very strategy the United States has relied on for decades. Every lost F-35 sale isn't just a financial hit for Lockheed Martin, it's erosion of geopolitical leverage. It's not just Canada that benefits. Consider Finland, a new NATO member with a long border against Russia, seeks rapid, flexible options without being entirely dependent on United States supply chains. The Czech Republic, upgrading its air force on a tight budget, sees the Gripen as a cost-effective, independent solution. Developing nations, hungry for modern technology, could bypass the American permission system entirely. Each country that chooses a Rolls-Royce-powered Gripen chips away at Washington's global control model. It's more than planes. It's a potential shift in the balance of military power within NATO and beyond. For the Pentagon, this is unsettling. The loss of control means allies can act faster, innovate independently, and make decisions without aligning perfectly with United States policy. In short, the Gripen doesn't just fly. It empowers countries to rewrite the rules of defense alliances. Canada is small in the grand scheme, but its choice sets a precedent. If Ottawa chooses sovereignty over dependency, it signals to the world. Modern air power doesn't have to come with strings attached. This story isn't just speculation. There are real-world signals showing that the Gripen plus Rolls-Royce option is moving from idea to possibility. Watching these clues is like following a trail in a mystery. You don't need a press release to see the pattern. First, Canada reopening procurement discussions. After nearly finalizing the F-35 deal, Ottawa suddenly returned to the negotiating table. In defense politics, this rarely happens without a serious alternative under consideration. The only aircraft with the technical and political credibility to challenge the F-35, the Gripen. Second, Saab's unusual announcements. At recent defense conferences, the Swedish manufacturer emphasized industrial participation and technology transfer for Canada, a topic they normally keep vague. This signals that they're ready to offer something beyond just selling jets. They're offering sovereignty and local capability. Third, Washington's reactions. Watch for increased lobbying, warnings about NATO compatibility, or last-minute incentives to push Canada back toward the F-35. The Pentagon rarely reacts unless it senses a real threat. If American officials suddenly become vocal, it's a clear indication that the Gripen option is gaining serious traction. Fourth, public and expert opinion in Canada. Defense analysts and domestic industry supporters are increasingly vocal about wanting an aircraft that promotes Canadian control and local jobs. When the public and experts align, politicians tend to pay attention. Polls already show surprising support for the Gripen among key stakeholders. Taken together, these signals tell a clear story. This is already happening, quietly but effectively. Canada isn't just daydreaming about independence, it's actively exploring it. And every move, every conversation, and every negotiation builds toward a potential choice that could reshape defense politics. The stage is set, the pieces are moving, and the next step, Canada's final decision, will determine whether this theoretical possibility becomes a tangible shift in global power. Canada now stands at a true crossroads. On one path is the F-35, a fighter jet that ensures integration with the United States and NATO, providing alliance security and advanced capabilities, but at a cost. Not just financial, but strategic. Choosing the F-35 means long-term dependence on Washington for updates, maintenance, and even basic operational decisions. It's a path of security, but also of limited sovereignty. On the other path is the Gripen equipped with a Rolls-Royce engine. This is more than just a plane. It's independence in practice. Canada would gain the freedom to operate, upgrade, and maintain its fleet on its own timeline. Arctic missions could happen without delay. Domestic industrial capabilities could flourish, creating jobs, training engineers, and building expertise. Costs become predictable, and decisions rest with Ottawa, not the Pentagon. It's sovereignty with responsibility, a model that demonstrates modern defense doesn't have to mean dependency. The implications go far beyond Canada. Finland, the Czech Republic, and smaller NATO or non-aligned states are watching. If Canada takes this path, it gives other nations permission to rethink their own defense strategies. It challenges the old system where engines, software, and supply chains are levers of geopolitical control. Every Gripen sale outside American oversight weakens Washington's monopoly, and every nation that chooses sovereignty chips away at a decades-long network of influence. At the heart of this story is a simple yet profound question. The question isn't whether Canada can fly without Washington's permission. The question is whether it's willing to. This is the kind of story that goes beyond politics or technology. It's about courage, foresight, and the willingness to take control of your own destiny. Canada's decision could ripple across continents, inspiring other nations to rethink what independence in defense really means. And if you want to keep following stories like this, stories that uncover the shifts in global power, the hidden moves behind big decisions, and the forces shaping the future, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Every click helps us dig deeper and bring you insights that few others dare to explore.